Uh, see me. Look, with him. Look, man, I wear black. Yo, bass. Jeez. Come on. Check 1 step, 2 step, 3 step.
My name is Jerome Prescott.
So Jerome, I just want to ask you, you're into US politics, you study it, so in your opinion, do you think the US president matters, or do you believe that Congress rules or has much more influence within the country?
It's a good question, but it has to be put into context, because how the American system works is they've got three branches of power. So after the Civil War in 1783, I think, you had the Founding Fathers, and what they did was they set up a new constitution in 1787 where they wanted to split the branches of power. So they didn't have a monarchy like how they have in England. They wanted to split the branches of power so that it was basically so that one branch of power could have a check and balance towards the other, so the president couldn't have too much power, and nor could the House or the Senate. Right, and then also on top of that, to make sure that the laws are governed correctly, you have your judges and you have your legislators like that. So what I would say is that it's very difficult to answer, because the presidents have powers like they have veto power. So any law that's passed in the House or the Senate, the president can veto that.
Right.
The president can pardon anybody. What the president's role is meant to be under the Constitution is meant to enforce the law. The House so the House of Representatives is basically every state has a certain amount of what you call representatives. So depending on how big the state is, you get more representatives.
Right.
Every state has 2 senators that they can put on, right? So under that system, the Senate and the House of Representatives, they make the laws. The president is there to enforce the laws. The president's role essentially is to make treaties. He has veto powers, things like that. So essentially, the legislative body, which is the House, they have a lot of power. There's no doubt about that. But the president can also veto that power, and so it works both ways. So anytime that the president, if the president's getting too out of control, the House can veto what the president wants to do.
Right.
You understand? So it's not a clear running. It's not a clear kind of thing where the president has more power than the House or the Senate. The American Constitution was set out in a way to make sure that the president doesn't have a kind of monarchy power, and also is set out to make sure that the Senate doesn't have like a Roman style power either, where they're also ruling the land. So that the representatives, if you like, who are in the House, who are supposed to represent the people, also have their main sway. So it's meant to be equal, really.
Right. Okay, and then just a quick follow-up question from that. Because of what you've explained and how the American system works, what influence do you think that can potentially have on the upcoming general election, and either a Clinton presidency or a Trump presidency?
That's a good question, because really, in relation to the House or the Senate having more power than the president, that's where the interesting part of the election really is going to be. So it doesn't matter so much who is the president. It more matters who is in the House and who's in the Senate, to see whether that president can actually govern. Because as we've seen under Obama in his last term, if you don't have the House and the Senate, you can't govern. You can't do anything.
Yeah.
What I expect to happen, though, is that whoever wins will have the majority of the House and the majority of the Senate, as normally happens in American history. So under your first term, when you're fresh, normally the person in the voting booth, if he's voting for you as the president, he's also voting for your party, and then normally you have your three ticks. Who do you want to be the president? Who do you want to be in your house? And who do you want to be the Senate? And normally people are going to vote for the same all three. So you find that the person who's the president at the time, Republican or Democrat, is going to have the majority. So if they have the majority, then they're gonna have the power. If it ends up, if Hillary Clinton wins, it may end up that we have the status quo continuing in the House and in the Senate. So you may find that if Clinton wins, you may find that the House and the Senate will be majority Republican still, and therefore it will block her powers. In the case of Donald Trump, if Donald Trump wins, I still think there's going to be a majority House and Senate for the Republicans. So it depends.
And then just finally, Jerome, who do you think will win the American presidency?
Based on the current polls and the fact that they're not factoring in people that haven't voted before, I think Trump's going to win.
Thank you.
Don't wanna talk, so I stay blacked out. I'm a black male, so you can't blackmail me. Like I protect my energy, so man I wear what man I seeing on the street. In a man I wear it gets peaked, so